Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing all good. In this video, we're taking a look at the P90, and as always, I'm going in depth, I'm breaking it down, and I'm going to be sharing with you all an epic class setup for the P90 in Warzone. I didn't actually expect to be making this video this week, as I thought Season 4 was going to drop and I was going to be spending most of my time covering that, but seeing that it's been delayed, I thought there's no better time than to tick off some of the other gun builds that I've had on my list, and the P90's been on there for a while. The P90 is one of my favourite SMGs in Warzone and Modern Warfare. I love the off-the-ground P90 that we get in Warzone. I always feel super confident with it, and that's probably because it's got like super good recoil, good close range damage, all of that lovely stuff. But the idea for this build is that I'm kind of using it as my main. It's my primary gun. I'm not running a secondary that's supposed to be like a close range gun. I'm probably going to run this with an RPG or something like that. So in short, this gun, this P90, is our primary. So we want this to be good at not only short range, but at mid, and probably trying to push it for long range as well. So we're covered for most situations that we're going to run into in Warzone. So the first thing I'm going to look at is how we can push the damage range for the P90 at pretty much all damage ranges, as I said, from short to medium to long ranges. And then we're going to take a look at any kind of downsides that incurs and try to balance them out, so that what we're left with is an epic, well-balanced Warzone P90. So before I jump into it, if you're new to the channel, then welcome. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all of my amazing Warzone content. If you guys have been here before, then welcome back. I just want to say quick thanks to everyone who's commented and subbed and liked recently. I've got so many amazing comments, it's unreal. The channel is growing rapidly fast, so I wanted to say a massive thanks to all of you. I appreciate every single one of you. I always write back to all of my comments, so I hope that I'm showing that. I'm going to be putting out some stream schedules as well, because you guys don't even see me game, and that was literally the whole point of why I started my channel in the first place. So if you're excited for that, then drop a like and let me know down in the comments. Also follow me on Twitter, because I've got the last part for my epic gaming PC build that came today. So I'm super excited. I want to get this video done. Not that I'm kind of like cutting corners, but I want to get this done and build that baby, because I am literally like a kid at Christmas. So without any further ado, let's get into this video. First up, let's kind of review the base stats for the P90. So the P90 has the rounds per minute of 900. So that's pretty fast. It's only kind of beaten by the MP7 that has an RPM of 950. So then from that gives us an RPS of 15 rounds per second. So then the movement speed of the P90 is 97%. So it's not as good as an MP7, it's not as good as an Uzi, which is 100%, and the MP7 is 99%. So it's not as fast movement speed as those two. The ADS time at base, I measured it to be 104 milliseconds. Which is not what it says on old stats that I referred to. So I don't know if they've changed it, they've kind of improved it, they could have buffed it recently, I don't know. But I timed it to be 104 milliseconds, and the sprint out time was also 104 milliseconds. Talking outside of stats and just talking about the feeling of the gun, it's just one of those SMGs. As I said, it's one of my favourites. I think that's because of the recoil. There's very little recoil, so it's a really easy gun to use. You can always feel like you can laser people, even at like mid ranges, and also the fire rate and damage output is pretty decent. So all round, as I said earlier, I quite like it when I pick it up off the ground. I always feel I can do quite well with it. Okay, so to push damage range for the P90, what most people do for Warzone to push damage range is to firstly look at the barrel options. So for the P90, we have two options. The first one is the Forge Tac Retribution barrel, and that gives us the positives of damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. So that's amazing. They're three key factors in Warzone, so that's great. But it has the downsides of slower ADS speed and slower movement speed. Of course, I'm going to test this. Well, I have tested this. I'm going to get into all this in a second. And then the second option for a barrel that we have is the FSS 10.6 inch Pro. And that gives us extra damage range and added bullet velocity, so that's good, but it doesn't give us the recoil control that the other barrel does, and the downsides are slower ADS speed, so you kind of get less negatives but you get less positives as well. And of course, as I said, I'm going to be testing this right now. So on screen now, we'll take a look through my shots to kill at range calculator table that I made. So on the left we have the distances, then next to that we have the base P90 stats, then with the mono suppressor in that same column. Then we have the stats when I added the Forge Tac Retribution barrel, and then the stats with that barrel and the mono. And then lastly on the right hand side we have the FSS barrel with that stat on its own when I just added the barrel on its own, and then when I add the mono suppressor. I test a lot of stuff, people. It gets kind of crazy. So to kind of make this long story short, as you can see by the colored numbers, so green is good and then red is bad or equal bad. As you can see, kind of 25 meters we have, they kind of equal 14-14 for the base P90 and for the FSS barrel, so they're both equally as bad. And then blue is middle, and then grey is, you know, it's just the same across the board. So the kind of short story here is that the mono suppressor on its own only pushes damage range around 27.5 meters, which is still good because that's kind of like a key range for the P90 for an SMG. It's not too far. You're kind of coming out of close range. You're going into like mid range. And then outside of that, as you can see, the Forge Tac Retribution barrel kind of steals the show. I mean, it only kind of balances out with the FSS barrel at around 30 to 35 meters, where they kind of share the same stats. But anything past 35 meters, especially around 37.5 meters, we start to see the max damage fall off, and that's kind of the best that we're going to get no matter what barrel we use. And if I was to go a little bit deeper on this, I don't want to go too crazy because we could just talk about this forever. But as you can see, if you take a look at the FTR barrel with the mono, so that column, so as you can see, about 17.5 meters, we pushed that 10-shot damage range that beats both the base P90 and the FSS barrel. So that's good. Then we got the 13-shot kill range that gets extended with this kind of combination at 27.5 meters. And then, as I said earlier, at 30 to 35 meters, it starts to balance out with the FSS barrel. So basically, we know the option we're going to go for now is to use the FTR barrel with the mono suppressor. So with this understood, what we need to go and do now is to find some other attachments to make this gun sick. And the first stop for me on this is really to focus on recoil, stability, as that really sucks on the P90. I'm going to get into that in a second. And we're going to try and get back some ADS time so we can keep this gun snappy, even though we've added the extra weight with the longer barrel and the mono suppressor. So to focus on recoil, the first set of attachments that I wanted to take a look at was an underbarrel. And it's quite weird for the P90 because the underbarrel attachments are actually grips, not like the rear grip. These are like front grips. So the underbarrel has three options. You have granulated, stippled, and rubberized. And the one that kind of looks best on paper for recoil control is the stippled grip tape. So that gives us the pros of recoil control and aiming stability. So we're kind of ticking two boxes there, but the downsides are aim walking movement speed, which isn't too bad, and of course ADS speed. So on screen now, we're taking a look at the recoil pattern. So the first line here on the left is the recoil pattern for the P90 with the Retribution barrel and the mono suppressor. Then next to this is both of those attachments plus the stippled grip tape, which of course again is giving us recoil control and aiming stability. So as you can see with the stippled grip tape, it's giving us quite a decent reduction in vertical recoil, so that's good. It's already making me think that this attachment is completely worth it. I'm going to get into the downsides in a second. Of course I've tested those. I'm also getting into the stability in a second, but after this, my next kind of natural kind of flow was to go and test the rubberized grip tape, as that claims to see how that looks. And here it is on the right. So it doesn't seem to do anything. So it's completely not worth it at all. I mean, you can argue that it's a little bit of a tighter spread, kind of in the middle, kind of lower than the middle, but it's not as good as the stippled grip tape. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose the stippled grip tape to help us with the recoil. I then tested the new ADS speed once we've added these three attachments, so the F-Tac barrel, the mono suppressor, and the stippled grip tape. And the stippled grip tape doesn't affect the ADS time at all. And I tested this to the thousandths of a second. It's exactly the same, so that's really good. We can feel confident and add this attachment. Next up, let's address some stability, because the P90 stability is absolutely awful, so it needs some help. And one of the good kind of attachments that you can add to it to improve it is through the stock, and that is the FSS Heavy Stock Pro. So I wanted to test this out. Does it kind of improve our weapon sway that much? And it does a little bit, but kind of a long story short is I went and tested the tac laser as well, and this massively improves the idle weapon sway. So another thing, a downside of the stock, is that it takes up quite a large portion of the screen, the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Now I kind of thought this could be a negative because obviously it's going to block some of your vision, so it doesn't really add that much benefit to the idle weapon sway either. So I'm kind of suggesting to not use it, and we're gonna put a scope on this gun instead. So the scope that I go for, or the sight, whatever you want to call it, is the GI Mini Reflex. Now if you watched a few of my videos, I generally tend to stick to this one because I tend to use iron sights most of the time. I find that they're more than fine for most situations in Warzone. It's only really when you get a gun that has bad iron sights that I tend to use a scope, and the GI Mini Reflex just really gives you a clear sight picture, so I like to test that out. Plus it gives you visibly no ADS penalty whatsoever, so you get a clear sight picture for no downsides whatsoever. So here's the idle weapon sway with the tac laser. As you can see, it's pretty much non-existent. This is a very small and subtle movement, but I can happily say that we've kind of addressed this. So we've kind of got really good recoil, we've got good damage range, and now we've got good stability, and also we've got really good ADS speed through the tac laser. So to bring all of this to a conclusion, what we're going to build on the P90 is the mono suppressor, the F-Tac retribution barrel, the GI Mini Reflex, tac laser, and the stippled grip tape. So what do the stats look like for this build? What are the benefits? What are the downsides, etc.? So let's just recap. So don't forget, we're building an SMG out for long range, so it's pretty much impossible to improve on mobility, ADS speed, all that kind of stuff when you're building an SMG out for range. That's because you're adding extra weight through the barrel and the mono suppressor and things like that. So with all that in mind, and don't forget, what we have given this gun through these attachments is better range, sound suppression, better recoil control, and almost perfect idle sway stabilization. What we actually get is a 5 frame slower ADS than base, which isn't too crazy considering everything that we've given it, and it's also got a 10% slower movement speed than base, which in the grand scheme of things isn't too bad. So that's a wrap for the video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget to like the video if you found it enjoyable and helpful. And don't forget to sub if you're new here to stay up to date with all of my amazing content. I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, much love, peace.